In the vast, silent expanse of space, a brilliant flash shattered the stillness. Commander Alex Mars watched from the command deck of the orbital station Guardian's Watch. His eyes narrowed as the peaceful hospital ship Healer's Hope suddenly erupted in bursts of light and debris. The ship, a symbol of Earth's commitment to galactic peace and healing, was under attack. "Report!" Mars's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. Lieutenant Harrow, his features tense, turned from his console. "Multiple breach points, Commander. They came without warning. Unknown vessels using advanced cloaking tech." Mars's jaw tightened. The station shook slightly under the strain of distant explosions, the vibrations running deep through the metal under his feet. Below them, Earth hung like a serene blue marble, oblivious to the carnage unfolding in its orbit. Through the reinforced viewports, the Healer's Hope was a scene of devastation. Once gleaming, its hull was now marred by scorches and gaping holes. Emergency shuttles darted about, weaving a frantic dance of rescue and evasion. "Visuals on the attackers," Mars demanded, stepping closer to the panoramic screens that displayed the unfolding disaster. "Getting them now," Harrow replied, his fingers flying over the lit console. The images that flickered to life were grainy but revealed the angular, menacing forms of the attacking ships, sleek and dark against the starry backdrop. Mars's mind raced. The Healer's Hope was unarmed, its mission purely humanitarian. Who would target such a ship? And why now, when tensions across the sectors were finally cooling? "Prepare the fleet. This isn't just an attack, it's a statement," Mars declared, his voice a low growl. "Get me the President. No one hits us like this," and slinks away into the dark. As Harrow relayed the orders, Mars watched the rescue operations below. His heart was a clenched fist in his chest, each report of casualties and damage tightening the grip. The Healer's Hope had been his initiative, a project meant to bridge worlds with compassion rather than force. Now, it was a smoldering ruin. The side door hissed open, and Commander Giles stepped through, his expression grim. "Alex, the Council is on standby. They're waiting for your lead." Mars nodded, his gaze still fixed on the screens. "Tell them we retaliate. No half measures. We're going to show them that Earth isn't just about mercy." Turning from the viewport, Mars's silhouette was stark against the flickering light from the screens. "Ready the war fleets. It's time they learned the cost of their mistake." In that moment, the course was set. Earth would respond, and the galaxy would watch, witness to a new chapter in human history, one written not in words of peace, but in the language of war. As the stars blazed in silence outside the command deck of Guardian's Watch, Commander Alex Mars's thoughts were a tumultuous sea, each wave crashing with tactical possibilities and the weight of impending confrontation. The dim glow of console lights painted his features in shades of resolve and determination. "Commander, the Shadow Lancers and Nova Wings are in position," reported Commander Giles, his voice a low thrum against the soft whir of computers processing vast streams of data. "Excellent," Mars responded, his gaze fixed on the holographic display that now showed the fleet's positions like chess pieces ready for a gambit. "Initiate Phase 1. Let's shake the cosmos and see what falls out." The operation was delicate, a dance on the razor's edge of interstellar politics and military prowess. As the fleet maneuvered into the designated sectors, the tension was palpable, each officer's breath a quiet testament to the stakes at hand. "Deploy the decoys," Mars commanded, his voice steady as the pulse of the ship. On his order, a series of unmanned vessels, mere echoes of the real firepower, drifted into the potentially hostile zones, their trajectories calculated to provoke a response, to lure out the hidden enemy. The response was not long in coming. A distortion in the fabric of space, a subtle ripple, barely noticeable, betrayed the presence of another cloaked vessel. The sensors, fine-tuned to detect the minutest anomalies, picked up the disturbance, converting it into a blinking red dot on Mars's screen. "There," he pointed, his finger tapping the display. "That's our ghost. All units converge." As the fleet responded, the scent of anticipation mixed with the recycled air of the command deck. Mars watched, his senses sharpened, each moment stretched taut like the strings of a cosmic instrument. "Contact in 3, 2, 1. Giles counted down, his voice a thread woven through the silence. The moment the decoys were struck, the trap was sprung. From the shadows of the void, Earth's ships emerged, their weapons systems lighting up the dark like the first dawn rays. The enemy, caught off guard, scrambled to retaliate, their cloaking devices flickering out as they engaged. "Fire at will. Target their engines and weapon systems. I want them crippled, not destroyed," Mars ordered, his strategy clear. He intended to capture, to learn, and to send a message that Earth was not to be trifled with. The skirmish was brief but intense. The bridge vibrated with the controlled chaos of battle, the sharp scent of ionized particles wafting through as shields absorbed the impact of enemy fire. Mars's crew worked with precision, their movements a ballet choreographed by months of rigorous training and unspoken trust. As the enemy's flagship faltered, its engines damaged and weapons offline, Mars allowed himself a brief smile. "Prepare a boarding party. Giles, you're with me. Let's find out who is so interested in our hospital ships." The victory was minor, but its implications were vast. As the boarding party prepared, Mars's mind was already racing ahead, piecing together the puzzle. Who would dare such an audacious attack? And more importantly, what were they truly after? The answers, he knew, lay just beyond the airlock, in the dim corridors of a defeated enemy ship. As Commander Mars and Commander Giles stepped through the airlock into the dimly lit corridor of the enemy flagship, the cold sterility of the alien vessel sent a chill through their suits. The walls, a seamless metal, echoed with the silence of a defeated foe, the only sound the soft clink of their boots against the hard floor. The air was stale, tinged with the electric scent of fried circuits and the acrid burn of discharged energy weapons. Mars's eyes adjusted to the subdued lighting, scanning the shadows that seemed to coil around them like silent watchers. "Keep sharp, team," he whispered into the comms, his voice a blade cutting through the quiet. The team moved forward, their lights slicing through the darkness, revealing the charred aftermath of their assault. Burn marks patterned the walls, and the occasional spark fluttered from damaged consoles like dying fireflies. Giles, always observant, gestured towards a heavy door at the end of the corridor. "Control room should be this way. If we're going to find any intel, it'll be there." Mars nodded, and the team progressed, their senses alert to any movement. As they approached the door, it slid open with a reluctant groan, revealing a room bathed in the eerie glow of emergency lighting. The control room was a mess of overturned chairs and shattered screens, testament to the ferocity of the skirmish. "Search everything," Mars commanded, his voice low but resonant in the cramped space. The team dispersed, rifling through cabinets and consoles, searching for data storage devices or any hint of the enemy's motives. Giles approached a partially intact console, his fingers deftly navigating the alien interface. "I think I've got something, Commander," he called out, his tone laced with cautious optimism. Mars joined him, watching over his shoulder as images flickered to life on the screen. Maps of known space, tactical data, and communications logs all scrolled past in a dizzying cascade of information. Among the data, a series of encrypted messages stood out, their contents locked behind layers of coding that spoke of secrets meant to remain hidden. "We need to get this back to the techs," Mars said, his mind already turning over the possibilities. "Whatever's in these messages could tell us who's behind this attack and why." As they secured the data, a low, distant rumbling shook the vessel, a reminder that the space around them was still a battlefield. Mars's gaze hardened. Time to move out. Whatever game our enemies are playing, we're now holding the cards. The return to their ship was tense but uneventful. Once aboard, Mars stood before the main viewport, watching as the captured ship was towed into secure orbit. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, a man steeled by conflict, carved out by the pressures of command. As the stars beyond watched silently, Mars felt the weight of the coming days. Decisions would need to be made, strategies formulated, and alliances tested. But for now, he had a lead, and that was a beginning. "Let's see what secrets you hold," he murmured to the reflection of the alien ship in the viewport. his words not a question, but a promise of revelations to come. As the decrypted files from the captured enemy flagship slowly unfolded their secrets, Commander Alex Mars stood over the shoulders of his chief cryptologist, Lieutenant Sanders. The air was thick with anticipation, the subtle scent of coffee mingling with the sterile tang of the ship's recycled atmosphere. Sanders tapped a final command, and a series of documents cascaded across the screen, their contents casting shadows of revelation across his focused face. "Sir, you'll want to see this," he said, pulling up an encrypted communication that had just been cracked. The message was a direct communication between the attacking fleet's commander and an unknown superior. Mars leaned in, his eyes scanning the cryptic phrases. The language was veiled, but the intent clear. The attack was meant as a precursor to something larger, a test of Earth's defenses and responses. "Any indication who this superior might be?" Mars's voice was sharp, cutting through the hum of background activity. "Not directly," Sanders replied, adjusting his glasses, "but there are references to the Council of Six. It appears to be a code name for a coalition, possibly rogue elements from known peaceful species." Mars exhaled slowly, the information settling like lead in his stomach. A rogue coalition meant the potential for widespread conflict, a shadow war that could erupt into full-scale devastation if not handled with precision. "Keep digging, Sanders. We need to know their next move, and we need it yesterday," Mars ordered, his tone resolute as he turned to leave the cramped quarters of the communications hub. Stepping back onto the bridge, Mars felt the ship's deck plates thrum beneath his boots, the vibration a constant reminder of the life held within the metal confines of the warship. He approached the main holotable, where Commander Giles was coordinating with the fleet, now on high alert. "Commander, we've increased patrols in all sectors. If anyone so much as sneezes in our direction, we'll know about it," Giles reported, not looking up from the table. "Good. And the public?" Mars queried, his gaze fixed on a star chart that blinked with potential hotspots. "Concerned but calm." Your statement reassured them. "For now," Giles added, meeting Mars's eyes with a look that mirrored the gravity of their situation. Mars nodded, processing the weight of command, the balance of keeping the public informed, yet secure. "Prepare my shuttle. I'm going to the Council. If we're facing a coalition, we need a united front, and I intend to make sure we have it." The walk to the shuttle bay was a short journey through corridors lined with the hum of readiness, each crew member alert and attuned to the ship's heartbeat. Mars's shuttle awaited, the hatch open like a dark maw ready to swallow him into the cold vastness of space. As he strapped into the pilot's seat, Mars's mind raced with the unfolding mysteries. The enemy's moves were still shadows on the fringe of understanding, but he was determined to drag them into the light. He fired up the engines, the roar of fierce promise to his crew and his planet. "Hang tight, Earth," he murmured as the shuttle detached, its course set for the heart of the political storm brewing just beyond the stars. The game was deepening, the players unknown, and Mars was ready to meet whatever challenges lay ahead. Commander Alex Mars's shuttle sliced through the vacuum of space, a solitary speck against the infinite canvas of the cosmos. The stars blazed with indifferent brilliance as he neared the Council's orbiting platform, a vast structure looming like a sentinel over the contested borders of Allied space. The platform, with its sprawling arms and blinking beacons, appeared almost organic, a giant sea creature anchored in the dark ocean of space. As Mars docked, the scent of ionized metal greeted him, a sharp reminder of the mechanical beast he was entering. He disembarked, his footsteps echoing in the hollow chamber of the airlock, before the heavy doors slid open with a soft hiss. Ahead, the corridor stretched, lined with the flags of the United Galactic Council, each banner fluttering slightly under the artificial breeze, circulated to mimic an Earth-like environment. His boots thudded softly on the polished floor as he approached the council chamber, a vast room with a domed ceiling that displayed a live map of the galaxy. The stars and planets moved in real time, the holographic display casting a soft glow over the faces of the council members who turned to greet him. "Commander Mars, Your arrival was eagerly anticipated, stated Ambassador Thalia, her voice resonant in the hushed chamber. Mars nodded, acknowledging the council with a measured gaze. Ambassadors, the situation is dire. The attack on the Healer's Hope was a prelude to broader aggression by a coalition we've yet to fully identify. We need a unified response. The chamber buzzed with whispered conversations as Mars outlined the intercepted communications and the mysterious Council of Six mentioned in the decrypted messages. With each word, the tension thickened, the air becoming dense with the gravity of decisions hanging in the balance. Ambassador Joren, representing the Jovian sectors, leaned forward, his voice skeptical. And you believe this coalition poses a significant threat not just to Earth, but to all of us? Mars met his gaze unflinchingly. I do. Their technology and ability to strike without warning is unlike anything we've seen. This isn't just about Earth security. It's about maintaining the balance of power in the galaxy. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber, the council members exchanging looks of concern and resolve. Mars's words had stirred the pot of their complacency, the ripple effects beginning to take hold. We will deliberate and return with a decision, Commander. Your insights have been invaluable, concluded Thalia, signaling the end of the meeting with a nod. As Mars exited the chamber, the weight of the upcoming decisions pressed down on him like the gravity of a neutron star. The corridor seemed narrower now, the flags no longer symbols of unity, but reminders of the fragile alliances that held the galaxy together. Returning to his shuttle, Mars felt the isolation of his position. He was a soldier in a galaxy of shadows and whispers, where every light hid darker recesses. The shuttle's cabin was silent as he prepared for launch, the only sound the faint whisper of air recycling systems working to keep the void at bay. As the shuttle disengaged from the Council's platform, Mars looked back at the shrinking silhouette against the backdrop of stars. The challenges ahead were as numerous as the stars themselves, each one a potential spark for conflict or cooperation. With a steady hand, he set the course back to Earth, ready to face whatever storms the galaxy might muster. As Commander Mars's shuttle re-entered Earth's atmosphere, the hull glowed with a fierce orange heat, the friction painting streaks of fire against the blackness of space. The transition from the silent void to the muffled roar of atmospheric entry marked his return to the terrestrial battleground. The vibrant blue of Earth loomed larger, a reminder of what was at stake. Landing at the military base, Mars felt the jolt through the shuttle's frame, a solid reminder of his return to solid ground. He disembarked into the brisk air, the chill biting at his skin, a stark contrast to the controlled climate of the shuttle. The smell of jet fuel was strong on the tarmac, mixing with the distant aroma of wet earth from recent rains. He was met by General Carter, whose firm handshake and steely gaze conveyed the urgency of the situation. Commander, the Council has convened an emergency session. They're waiting for your report. Together they walked briskly towards the command center, the crunch of their boots on the gravel punctuating their quick pace. Inside, the buzz of activity was a living thing. Electronic screens flickering with data, officers moving briskly, their voices a low murmur of operational chatter. Mars stepped up to the podium, facing the assembled military brass and representatives from the Council. We face a coalition of rogue elements, identified only as the Council of Six. Their reach and resources are extensive, and their intentions clearly hostile, he began, his voice cutting clearly through the hum of background activity. He continued, detailing the tactical situation, the known capabilities of the enemy, and the potential strategies for defense and retaliation. With each sentence, the weight of command settled heavier on his shoulders, a mantle he bore with grim determination. As of now, our primary objective is to fortify our defenses and initiate surveillance sweeps of all sectors. We need to find their base of operations, Mars concluded, his gaze sweeping over the room, meeting eyes that reflected a mix of resolve and concern. General Carter stood, the scrape of his chair sharp in the quiet that followed Mars's report. Commander, your insights are invaluable. We'll begin deploying additional satellites and increase our intel efforts immediately. As the meeting disbanded, the air was thick with the scent of brewing coffee and the metallic tang of electronic equipment. Mars lingered, reviewing a digital map with Carter. They plotted points and marked potential hotspots, their fingers tracing arcs and lines across the glowing surface. Outside, the wind had picked up, carrying the distant rumble of aircraft engines and the faint echo of marching troops. The base was a hive of activity, gearing up for a conflict that had come to their doorstep. Mars left the command center, his steps slow, his mind racing. The cool air brushed against his face, carrying whispers of the grass and the distant sea, natural scents that grounded him in the reality of his planet, his home under threat. As he looked up at the sky, now darkening to twilight, the first stars twinkling into existence, he felt a mixture of dread and determination. The mystery of the enemy's plans was like the night sky, dark, deep, and concealing unknown dangers. Yet each star was also a point of light, a guide to navigating the perilous times ahead. As twilight deepened into a velvety dusk, Commander Mars watched the massive silhouettes of Earth's war fleet preparing for deployment. The ships, colossal titans of steel and fire, cast long shadows across the sprawling launch fields, their outlines stark against the burning horizon where the sun had just disappeared. The air vibrated with the low rumble of engines, a deep, resonant sound that felt more like a distant thunderstorm than the mechanical growl of human engineering. Mars felt the ground tremble beneath his boots as the flagship, the Aegis, powered up its main thrusters. The gusts from the engines whipped up whirlwinds of dust and debris, sending papers and loose materials dancing chaotically in the air, only to be slammed back to Earth as the force subsided. "Commander, we're ready to commence the grand offensive," reported Admiral Hayes, approaching Mars with a determined stride. His voice was firm, carrying over the noise with an urgency that matched the tension etched on his weathered face. Mars nodded, his gaze fixed on the fleet. "Initiate launch sequence. No delays. It's time we took the fight to them." As the first ship lifted off, its engines blazing a brilliant blue against the night, Mars turned and headed toward the command center. Inside, the atmosphere was electric, charged with anticipation and anxiety as the crew monitored the fleet's progress. Screens lined the walls, displaying live feeds from the ships and detailed tactical data. "Keep me updated on their formation. I want real-time intel on any changes in enemy movements," Mars commanded, his voice a calm anchor in the storm of activity surrounding him. The crew worked with precision, their actions swift and sure. Communications Officer Lieutenant Jensen suddenly stiffened, his headset relaying a message that paled his cheeks. "Sir, we've detected an anomaly in Sector 47. It's not a ship or debris. It's something else." Mars approached, his interest piqued. "On screen, Lieutenant." The image that appeared was grainy and oscillating, a vague form that shimmered like a mirage in the desert. It was unlike any spacecraft or weapon system known to their databases. "Analysis?" Mars's brow furrowed, his mind racing through the possibilities. "We're not sure, sir. It doesn't match any known signatures. It's as if it's barely there, like a ghost," Jensen replied, adjusting the sensors to try and clear the image. "Keep an eye on it. Notify me of any changes," Mars decided, his instincts tingling with the suspicion that they were on the verge of a significant discovery or a formidable trap. As he stepped back, the cool air of the command center brushed against his skin, carrying a mix of the sterile chill of technology and the faint scent of anxiety sweat from the busy crew. He felt the weight of command more acutely than ever, a solitary burden as he faced the unknown elements of this galactic chess game. Outside, the fleet continued its ascent, the ships becoming distant stars themselves, a new constellation written in the annals of human endeavor. Mars watched them go, each light a symbol of Earth's resilience and determination, while the mystery in Sector 47 loomed like a shadow at the edge of his mind, promising revelations that could change the course of the war. As the Earth's fleet stretched into the deeper canvas of space, the mystery in Sector 47 evolved rapidly. Commander Mars, eyes fixed on the live feed, witnessed the anomaly expand and shimmer, its form undulating like the surface of a disturbed pond. The bridge of the command center was tense, with officers exchanging quick, sharp commands and the occasional murmur of intrigue. "Enhance that image," Mars ordered, his voice slicing through the focused silence. The screen flickered, zooming closer on the anomaly, revealing its swirling, almost liquid-like nature. It did not behave like any known matter. It seemed to dance, almost playfully evading their attempts to understand its structure. "Sir, it's not just visual noise. There's a pattern here," Lieutenant Jensen noted, his tone a mixture of wonder and apprehension. He manipulated the controls, adjusting the filters to isolate the anomaly's pulsating rhythm. The pattern stabilized into a coherent shape, then split into a series of repeated motifs that suggested a coded message or signal. "Is it trying to communicate?" Mars pondered aloud, his brow furrowed as he considered the implications. The very thought that they might be witnessing first contact, or a trap set by the elusive Council of Six, sent a shiver through the room. "Possible, sir. Or it could be a natural phenomenon unlike anything we've documented," Jensen replied, his voice cautious, reflecting the uncertainty that gripped them all. Mars turned to Admiral Hayes, who had been quietly observing the proceedings. "Prepare a probe. If it's communication, I want to answer back. If it's a threat, I need more data." "Yes, Commander," Hayes responded, signaling to his team, who immediately set to work preparing the unmanned probe, equipped with various sensors and communication tools. As the probe was deployed, silence enveloped the command center, every officer holding their breath as they watched the anomaly react. The probe approached slowly, sending back streams of data that were displayed in real time on the main screen. Suddenly, the anomaly expanded, enveloping the probe in a burst of light. The data stream flickered, surged, then stabilized, revealing a series of complex mathematical sequences and diagrams, alongside visual and audio feeds that defied immediate explanation. "What in the cosmos is that?" whispered a junior officer, unable to hide his astonishment. Mars stood motionless, absorbing every piece of data. The images were intricate, displaying star maps that didn't match any known configurations, and the audio, a series of low, melodic tones interspersed with what could only be described as whispers. "We need to bring this to the scientists," Mars decided, his voice reflecting a mix of resolve and the awe that filled the room. "Keep monitoring and ensure we maintain a safe distance. Whatever this is, it's beyond our current understanding." As Mars exited the bridge, the mystery of the anomaly lingered in his mind, like a melody that you can't quite recall but can't forget. Each step he took echoed softly in the quiet corridor, a stark contrast to the chaotic rush of revelations he'd just experienced. He knew this moment might mark a pivotal point, not just in their battle against the Council of Six, but perhaps in the very understanding of their place in the universe. Commander Mars paced the length of the scientific lab, his gaze locked on the teams of analysts poring over the data transmitted by the probe before it was engulfed by the anomaly in Sector 47. The room was alive with the soft clatter of keyboards and the low murmur of hushed, excited discussions. "Commander, you should see this." Dr. Alina Patel, the lead astrophysicist, called him over. Her workstation was littered with digital papers and several holographic displays showing complex geometric patterns and strings of data that looked like nothing from known physics. Mars leaned in, his eyes tracing the swirling diagrams that seemed almost alive, pulsating gently in a rhythm that felt both alien and familiar. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" "It's extraordinary," Alina began, her voice filled with a mix of awe and trepidation. "The patterns here aren't just random data. They're structured, deliberate. It's as if we're seeing a blueprint, possibly of a technology far beyond our comprehension." The air in the lab was thick with the smell of ozone, generated by the high-powered computing equipment working overtime. Mars felt a tingling sensation on his skin as he absorbed the implications. "A blueprint for what?" he questioned, his mind racing. "We're not sure yet," Alina admitted, zooming in on a segment of the pattern. "But see here? These sequences resemble theoretical models of quantum entanglement and multidimensional physics, theories that we haven't been able to test yet." Mars straightened, processing the information. "Keep at it, Doctor. Whatever this is, understanding it could be key to understanding our enemy. Leaving the lab, Mars felt the chill of the corridor seep through his uniform. The stark metallic surroundings of the ship felt constricting, a stark contrast to the boundless potential of the data he had just witnessed. His steps echoed in the empty hallway, each sound a stark reminder of the isolation inherent in his command. As he returned to the command center, a new report came in from the fleet's forward scouts. "Commander, we've identified unusual energy signatures near the Kalen system," reported Lieutenant Jensen, his tone urgent yet controlled. Mars approached the central holotable, which displayed a star map with the Kalen system highlighted. The signatures were erratic, pulsing in a pattern that eerily mirrored the data from the anomaly. "Prepare the fleet. Set a course for Kalen," Mars ordered, his voice firm, leaving no room for doubt. "Sir, approaching the Kalen system could provoke a confrontation with the Council of Six," Jensen warned, aware of the stakes. "I'm aware," Mars replied, his jaw set. "But it's a risk we have to take. If there's a connection between the anomaly and these energy signatures, it might just lead us to who, or what, is behind this conflict." As the fleet's engines powered up, sending vibrations through the ship, Mars watched the stars on the holotable. Each one seemed to hold secrets, stories of the cosmos they were only beginning to understand. With a mix of anticipation and anxiety, he knew they were stepping into uncharted territory, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge and power in the galaxy. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and discovery, but Mars was ready to lead the way. The fleet drifted into the Kalen system like predators stalking their prey, the vast, silent expanse around them punctuated only by the pulsing energy signatures on their monitors. The main viewport displayed the stars, stretching endlessly, their cold light flickering against the sharp edges of the fleet's ships. Commander Mars stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the glowing markers representing the unidentified energy sources. "Magnify the readings," Mars ordered, his voice a taut wire of focus. The holotable flickered, expanding the data into layered diagrams and spectral graphs. Lieutenant Jensen adjusted the sensors. "The energy emissions are concentrated around a large structure orbiting Kalen's third moon. It's massive, Commander. We've never seen anything like it." The room quieted as the image sharpened. A sprawling alien structure, its design both elegant and menacing. Spires stretched like frozen lightning bolts, and faint pulsations of light rippled through its translucent surface, as if the structure itself were alive. The glowing surface seemed to shift subtly, the patterns shifting like veins carrying blood. Mars leaned forward, his fingers gripping the edge of the table. "Life signs?" Jensen hesitated. "None that match standard biological readings, sir, but the structure is active. Something's operating it." The air in the command center grew heavy, the faint smell of heated metal rising as systems worked at maximum capacity. Mars's senses sharpened. Even the vibration beneath his boots felt alive, like the ship itself anticipated the unfolding mystery. Admiral Hayes broke the tension. "Commander, should we send a scout team? If this is connected to the Council of Six, we need to know what we're dealing with." Mars considered, his gaze never leaving the alien structure. "Number, if it's a trap, we're not sending our people blind into its maw. Bring the fleet closer, slow and steady. We need to gather more data before making a move." The ships adjusted formation, creeping toward the enigmatic structure. As they closed the distance, a faint resonance began to echo through the ship, like a low, melodic pulse carried through the hull. It wasn't sound, not in the traditional sense, but something deeper, a vibration that seemed to settle in the chest, felt more than heard. "Commander," Dr. Alina Patel's voice crackled through the comms from the lab. "That resonance, it's the same frequency pattern we found in the anomalies transmissions. This structure could be amplifying it." Mars's jaw clenched. "Then it's not just a coincidence, they're connected." The fleet's approach triggered a sudden reaction. The structure came alive, its spires flaring with a brilliant light. A wave of energy rippled outward, forcing the fleet's shields to shimmer under the pressure. Consoles across the command center sparked as the power surge swept through the ship. "Shields holding, but barely," yelled an officer, his voice cutting through the chaos. Mars steadied himself, his tone cold and sharp. "All ships, hold position. Do not engage unless ordered. This thing just woke up, and we're in its crosshairs. Let's see what it does next." The structure pulsed again, its light forming intricate patterns in the void, as if sending a message. Mars stared at the display, his mind racing. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a weapon. It was a challenge, a puzzle, and possibly the key to unraveling the Council of Six's intentions. But the longer it stared back at them, the more he felt like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. The alien structure loomed on the screen, its pulsating light growing faster, more erratic, like a heartbeat thrown into chaos. Each flicker cast strange shadows across the command center, turning the faces of the crew into a mosaic of tension and unease. Commander Mars stood rooted to his place, his fingers curling into the edge of the hollow table as if anchoring himself against the palpable uncertainty. "Commander, the structure is emitting a new energy pattern," reported Doctor Patel through the comms, her voice tight with both awe and fear. "It's unlike anything we've seen. Multiple layers of quantum interference overlapping. This isn't just a beacon. It's a response." "A response to what?" Mars asked, though he already suspected the answer. Patel hesitated. "To us, to our approach." The room buzzed with the quiet murmur of officers exchanging data, their movements quick but purposeful. The tang of overheating systems filled the air as the ship strained to process the deluge of information coming from the structure. Mars's focus sharpened as he studied the pulsations, noting the subtle shifts in their rhythm, as though they were adapting, learning. "Lieutenant Jensen," Mars said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade, "decode the patterns. I want to know if this thing is trying to communicate or if it's preparing to fire." "Already working on it, sir," Jensen replied, his hands moving deftly over the console. Outside the ship, the fleet held position, a wall of steel and firepower facing the enigmatic construct. The ships glinted under the alien light, their dark hulls almost shimmering in the radiance. The tension among the crews was mirrored by the unease that permeated the command center, a collective anticipation of something inevitable but unknown. Suddenly the pulsation stopped. The structure fell silent, its spires dimming to a faint glow. The abrupt stillness pressed down on the room, each passing second stretching into eternity. Mars's instincts screamed at him to prepare for the worst. "Commander," Jensen said, breaking the silence, "the patterns, they weren't just signals. They were coordinates. It's giving us a location." Mars's gaze snapped to the screen. "Coordinates to what?" Jensen's voice dropped. "To something deeper in the system, a nexus point." Before Mars could respond, the structure flared to life once more, its spires unleashing a wave of energy that rippled outward like a stone dropped into water. The wave washed over the fleet, disrupting systems and plunging several ships into brief darkness. "Status!" Mars barked as the command center flickered, the consoles struggling to stabilize. "Shields holding, but we're getting interference across all frequencies," Hayes replied, his voice steady despite the chaos. "It's pushing us back." Mars straightened, his mind racing. "Pull the fleet to a safe distance, but keep our sensors locked on that structure. And those coordinates, plot a course. Whatever this nexus is, it's what they want us to see." The alien structure pulsed one last time before dimming completely, leaving an eerie quiet that seemed to seep into every corner of the ship. Mars's eyes stayed fixed on the screen, the mystery deepening with every breath. Whatever lay ahead, he knew it would define the next chapter of this war, and possibly reshape everything humanity thought it knew about the galaxy. Commander Mars leaned over the holotable, its glowing surface casting sharp shadows on his face. The coordinates transmitted by the alien structure were now displayed, a point deep in the Kalan system where the void seemed unnaturally empty. It was an area known for its gravitational anomalies, the kind of place ships entered and never returned. "Lieutenant Jensen," Mars said, his voice calm but edged with intensity. "What are we looking at?" Jensen adjusted the projection, overlaying gravitational patterns. Sir, the coordinates point to a region with fluctuating gravity wells. The energy readings suggest an artificial source, but there's interference, likely some kind of cloaking or suppression field. Admiral Hayes crossed his arms, his expression grim. If that's their nexus, they've built it to keep unwanted visitors out. We'll need more than brute force to get through. Mars nodded, the gears in his mind turning. Agreed, this isn't just about firepower. We need precision, adaptability. Lieutenant, send a drone scout ahead. I want a detailed map of that region. Focus on gravitational distortions and possible entry points. Jensen nodded, relaying the order. On the holotable, a small drone icon detached from the fleet and moved toward the target. The room fell silent as the crew watched its feed in real time. The drone's sensors painted a picture of the region, shifting gravitational fields, energy spikes, and faint traces of something vast and metallic hidden within. Mars straightened, his fingers tapping the table as he formulated the next step. All right, here's how we proceed. Admiral Hayes, divide the fleet into 3 groups. Group 1 will create a diversion, drawing attention away from our approach. Group 2 will flank from the left, focusing on suppressing any defensive systems they might activate. And Group 3? Hayes asked, his tone sharp. Mars's gaze hardened. Group 3 is our spearhead. We'll use the drone data to navigate the gravitational anomalies and pierce their defenses. Our goal isn't to destroy, it's to infiltrate. If that's their nexus, we need intel, not rubble. Hayes nodded, already relaying orders to the fleet. The air buzzed with tension, the weight of the plan settling over the room like a tangible force. The drone suddenly shuddered, its feed flickering. The crew froze as the image showed a massive structure emerging from the shadows, a fortress of alien design, its surface bristling with defensive arrays that glowed ominously. Mars's voice broke the silence. We've got what we need. Pull the drone back and prepare for execution. This is going to be surgical, people. As the drone retreated, Mars turned to his officers, his voice low but resolute. Every move we make from this point on matters. Stick to the plan, stay disciplined, and we'll get through this. Failure isn't an option. The fleet began its approach, each ship sliding into position like pieces on a chessboard. The command center was filled with the quiet determination of a team moving toward an uncertain but critical objective. Outside, the alien fortress loomed, a silent adversary waiting for its challengers to make their move. The fleet moved with precision, its 3 groups executing the plan like clockwork. The lead ships of Group 1 advanced toward the fortress, their weapon systems lighting up the void as they fired calculated volleys. The impact rippled across the alien shields, drawing the fortress's attention as its defensive arrays activated in response. Bright beams of energy arced toward the decoy ships, forcing them to weave through the onslaught. Mars observed the battle from the central command station, his hands gripping the edges of the holotable as the diversion unfolded. Keep them focused on Group 1. Don't give them time to adapt, he ordered, his tone clipped but composed. Group 2 moved into position, their ships hugging the gravitational anomalies to mask their approach. Commander, Jensen reported, Group 2 is in position and targeting the fortress's left flank. They're taking out shield generators. Good, Mars replied. Tell them to maintain pressure. We need those defenses down. The screen shifted to display Group 3's progress. The spearhead team was navigating the labyrinth of gravity wells, their movements guided by the drone's data. The gravitational distortions bent light around the ships, creating an eerie visual effect that made them appear as though they were swimming through liquid space. Steady, Mars muttered, his eyes fixed on the holotable. The faint hum of activity in the command center seemed to fade as his focus narrowed on the spearhead. The alien fortress reacted, its spires shifting and emitting pulses of energy that disrupted the gravitational field. One of the spearhead ships was caught in the flux, its engine straining as it struggled to maintain its trajectory. Pull them back, Mars barked. Redirect their power to stabilizers and keep them moving. The ship corrected its course, narrowly avoiding collapse. The rest of the spearhead pressed forward, slipping through the anomalies and closing in on the fortress. Commander, we're detecting a gap in their defenses, Hayes reported. It's small, but it's enough to get a strike team inside. Mars nodded, his mind already racing ahead. Prepare the boarding teams. This is our chance. As the spearhead breached the outer perimeter, the alien fortress began to shift, its spires retracting and rearranging as though it were alive. The defensive fire intensified, but Group 2's assault weakened the fortress's response, buying the spearhead critical time. Send the boarding teams now, Mars ordered. We're inside their perimeter, but we won't have long before they adapt. Shuttles launched from the spearhead ships, their hulls streaking through the chaos of battle. Mars watched as they closed the gap, each second a test of precision and nerve. The fortress loomed larger with every passing moment, its alien architecture a menacing reminder of the stakes. The shuttles disappeared into the fortress's shadow, and Mars exhaled slowly, his breath steady despite the tension coiling around him. The real battle was just beginning, and the fate of the mission, and possibly the galaxy, hung on what the teams would find inside. The boarding team's shuttles pierced through the fortress's outer defenses, the atmosphere inside charged with tension. Commander Mars stood at the command station, his eyes glued to the tactical display. Each shuttle was marked as a glowing icon, moving deeper into the alien construct. The fortress, alive with shifting spires and glowing conduits, responded like a wounded animal, its defenses tightening and reorganizing with unsettling speed. "Commander," Hayes said, his voice taut, "we've lost contact with Shuttle 4. It was caught in a gravity pulse." Mars's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "Acknowledge the loss. The remaining teams need to adapt. They don't have the luxury of second chances." Inside the alien fortress, the boarding teams moved through corridors that pulsed with an unnatural glow. The walls seemed alive, breathing faint light and emanating a low vibration that made their skin crawl. Lieutenant Riker, leading the Alpha team, kept his weapon raised as he whispered into his comm, "This place is watching us. Every step feels like it's waiting." "Keep moving," Mars's voice crackled through. "You're not alone. We're seeing everything you are. Stay focused." Ahead, the Alpha team reached what appeared to be a central chamber. Its vast circular design stretched upward into shadow, with alien symbols glowing in intricate patterns across the floor. In the center stood a monolithic structure, its surface shimmering as if it were a liquid suspended in stasis. Riker hesitated, taking in the sight. "This is it. Whatever this thing is, it's their core." Mars's voice came through the comm, low and firm. "You need to shut it down, disable it before it can activate fully." As Riker approached the monolith, the structure began to hum, not in sound but in sensation. The vibration resonated in their bones, a low, rhythmic beat that made the air feel heavy. Symbols on the walls shifted, rearranging themselves as if responding to their presence. "This isn't just a weapon," Riker said, his voice almost reverent. "It's something more, something alive." "Then kill it," Mars replied sharply, his tone cutting through the mounting awe. "Now." Riker nodded, signaling his team to set charges around the base of the monolith. The air grew warmer, charged with a strange energy that made their skin tingle. The monolith pulsed, and a deep, resonating voice echoed in their minds. It wasn't words, but intent, an overwhelming sense of power and control. "Commander," Riker said, beads of sweat forming on his brow, "it's resisting. Whatever this thing is, it knows." Mars's response was ice cold. "Then reminded who we are." The charges detonated, and the monolith exploded in a cascade of blinding light. The fortress shook violently, its spires retracting as if in pain. Outside, the entire structure began to collapse, its glowing conduits dimming one by one. The fleet pulled back, watching the alien fortress implode, its vast frame swallowed by the dark void it had once dominated. Mars stood motionless, his voice steady as he spoke to the bridge. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them the Nexus is destroyed, and the Council of Six is no longer untouchable." The crew erupted in muted cheers, but Mars remained still, his gaze fixed on the debris field. "This isn't just a victory," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "This is a reminder. They attacked our mercy. We answered with fire. In the silence that followed, the weight of what they had accomplished, and what it meant, settled over them like a heavy mantle. The fortress was gone, but the message was clear. Humanity, when provoked, was not to be underestimated. The debris field of the alien fortress hung in space like a silent monument to the battle's ferocity. From the bridge of the Aegis, Commander Alex Mars stood watching the field on the main viewport, his reflection etched against the star-strewn void. The twisted remnants of alien technology drifted aimlessly, their faint glimmers extinguished one by one. "Status report," Mars said, his voice low but resonating with authority. Admiral Hayes turned from the tactical console. "The fleet sustained minimal damage. Boarding teams Alpha and Beta have returned. Total losses: 1 shuttle and its crew. All remaining forces are accounted for." Mars nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly, though the weight of responsibility lingered. His gaze flicked to the map of the Kalan system still hovering above the holotable, where the now empty Nexus coordinates were marked. "What about the energy signatures? Anything left?" Lieutenant Jensen, his face pale from hours of relentless monitoring, shook his head. "None, Commander. The readings have completely dissipated. Whatever they were drawing power from is gone." For the first time, the bridge fell into stillness. The faint vibrations beneath Mars's boots were the only indication of life aboard the massive ship. He turned, his eyes meeting the expectant faces of his crew, their expressions a mix of pride and exhaustion. Mars broke the silence. "Send this message across all frequencies. The Council of Six is no longer untouchable. Earth does not seek war, but if you bring destruction to our doorstep, you will not find weakness. You will find us." The words hung in the air, their weight felt by every soul on board. Admiral Hayes straightened, nodding in quiet agreement as the communication officer transmitted the message to Allied and neutral territories alike. Mars turned back to the viewport, the vastness of space stretching infinitely before him. The debris field floated quietly, the remnants of a technology designed to dominate now nothing more than scattered fragments. His reflection in the glass seemed distant, a shadow of the man who had shouldered the burden of humanity's survival. "They wanted to test us," Mars said, his voice quieter now, as if speaking to himself. "They thought our compassion was weakness. They thought mercy made us vulnerable." Hayes approached, his voice steady, but tinged with respect. "They thought wrong." Mars's lips curved in a faint, grim smile. "Let this stand as a reminder. We are merciful because we choose to be. But when that mercy is met with hostility, when they cross the line they never should—" His gaze hardened, the fire of resolve flickering in his eyes. "We remind them who we are." Outside, the debris glinted faintly, the light of distant stars catching on jagged edges. To some, it would be a testament to victory. To others, a warning. Mars knew it would echo far beyond this battlefield, rippling across the galaxy. "Set course for Earth," he ordered, his voice cutting through the silence. "Let them know we've come home." As the fleet began its return, the weight of what they had achieved settled over them. A battle fought not for conquest, but for the principles they held sacred. They had answered the attack not with anger, but with precision and purpose. Humanity had chosen mercy, and when that mercy was tested, it had answered with fire and fury. The galaxy, Mars knew, would never forget.